Okay, you're all set. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, or afternoon, or evening, or middle of the night, depending on your time zone. Welcome to the April 12th Kubernetes community meeting. As a reminder, this meeting is being recorded. Anything, questions you ask, etc., will be recorded and part of the archival meetings. I want to thank Clint Kitson for volunteering to take notes for this so that we have them for posterity. And then we'll be thanking other people at the end of the meeting. As usual, we are starting out with a demo. So today's demo is Antonio Murdaca demonstrating Cryo, the runtime for Kubernetes. And so he will go ahead and start that demonstration. Antonio, do you want to take it away?
Can you guys hear me loud and clear?
I can hear you.
Yes, you're fine.
Awesome. So, okay, guys, I'm going to talk about Cryo. I don't know how many people already heard about it. It's basically, well, for those who haven't, it's basically a new container runtime for Kube. It's actually a Kubernetes incubator project, and it's stable. Well, at least that what we say, it's stable, and we're actually supporting Kube 110, 19, and we're actively working on Kubernetes master to track all the changes in the CRI. We use runC under the hood, even if we can actually run containers with other OCI compliant runtime, like Clear Containers, or probably in the future Kata as well. And today I'm going to show a Kube 110 cluster running with the latest Cryo from the 110 release. And so if you can see the terminal, I actually started a local cluster here, and I started Cryo up here. And the whole point for this presentation, I guess, is to show how transparent working with the CRI is when it comes to container runtimes in Kube. And so the experience from Kube will be the same as the old one with other container runtimes as well. And for instance, everything is going to actually work just fine.
I'm sorry for interrupting. Can I please make the terminal window bigger? Because since you are showing two windows now, the terminal window.
Any better now?
A bit, if you can make the font bigger.
Oh, font size.
Yeah, it would be better.
Better now?
Yeah, more or less.
We actually checked before, but
I can't read it.
Okay. So I'm going to show you, as I said, how transparent all this is. This Kube cluster is by running Cryo, and you can see after I set up the cluster with local app cluster, I actually have the Kube DNS, and I deployed the dashboard as well. And all of this is actually running with Cryo and runC. You can see I'm not running any other container runtime. Rather, you can see from this output that I'm actually running runC containers under the hood. And Kubernetes is actually just talking to Cryo via the CRI interface. And as a demo, we can actually run an HTTPD pod, and I'm going to show you some other, let's say, default features that are going to work just fine with Cryo. At this point, so the HTTPD pod is running, and let's grab its IP. So if I curl, you can see that the HTTPD pod is actually working and it's replying to our request. We can also get the logs from the pod and see that requests are coming through as well. You can see that if I curl it one more time, I have 2 GET requests. Logs follow is also working. And actually, my whole terminal is stuck now. I'm sorry, but this got stuck. Okay, got the keyboard back. And another stuff that it's actually going to work flawlessly with Cryo is, for instance, exec. I can actually exec into the HTTPD pod. You can see I'm inside the actual pod. And as another, I already showed you that every container is actually running under runc. For talking to Cryo without Kubernetes, we also have support for a tool called CRI-CTL, which is another Kube project as well. And this is actually working fine with Cryo as well. We can see that every container from every pod I have on this node and cluster is actually running. Pods are showing up as well, and likewise images. And yeah, as I said, we're supporting Kubernetes 1.10 and 1.9, and we're actually actively tracking Kubernetes master as well. We do support deploying Cryo as a container runtime for Kube with Kube ADM, and we also have support for Minikube. And yeah, I guess that's it.
Can you show how you made local up cluster talk to Cryo so people can try it out if they want?
Yeah, so it's a bit long, but except the path and go path stuff, you just have to pass basically 2 environment variables. One is the container runtime, which must be set to remote. And the other one is container runtime endpoint, which is going to be the Cryo socket running, that Cryo is running with. And yeah, this is it.
Antonio, are you going to push an effort to get this first class as part of the testing jiggery so that we could actually have the entire blocking release job for Cryo across the full deployment apparatus that we currently have?
Yeah, I mean, we do already run every cube end-to-end test and node end-to-end test as part of every Cryo per request. As for the opposite, I guess that's what you're asking. For every cube per request, we're still working on it. But yeah, it would be something we're going to look into.
Also, are there people to route? Is there a team or people? I'm lipping you in and assigning you the issues. Are there people to route those issues to as we find them? Because there's a bunch of people who have Cryo issues currently.
Oh, so I mean, feel free to ping me, and I guess Mronal is on this call as well.
Yeah, you can ping us and you can create issues on GitHub on Cryo, and we are generally fast in responding to those issues.
I guess one last question might be, is SigNode planning to have a default for the 1.11 release? Because usually they curate and handpick a given container runtime that gets all the tests. And that's the one that is recommended for a given release cycle. Are the SigNode folks going to first class this in any reasonable time?
We haven't heard of any plans so far, but I don't know. It's going to be tricky with multiple CRI implementations. How can you just pick and say that this is the default? I guess, that needs more discussion.
So I think maybe take a look at the doc that I linked in chat. My understanding is SigNode is working on a CRI conformance thing to address the multiple CRI implementations issue. And CRI Cryo is just one CRI implementation. And so I think you would need to make sure that it's whatever implementation you choose as the default is going to pass those tests before we move on to blocking the entire Kubernetes release based on a default Cryo implementation. Does that make sense? And I'm totally guessing here. I would love to have somebody from SigNode direct me, but that was my read of that doc.
I think the default question is a really important one. It flows directly into scalability testing. Unless we're going to do scalability testing on all the options, which would be pretty awesome. At the moment, the kind of default is to do scalability testings with the defaults, which are set by other parts of the project. So the default question that Tim is asking is a really important one.
Yeah, that's why, what I'm trying to understand is what test data do we have on Cryo right now? I heard you mention that all of the end-to-end tests are run with Cryo today. I'm trying to go look for those results on TestGrid. Do you have a link handy that I can look at to see how many of them are passing versus failing over time? Because the link I posted in chat looks like stuck at roading.
Okay, so we are running every end-to-end test in a CI of our own at Red Hat. We actually plan to publish the results of each of this run to the Kubernetes test grid upstream so that everyone can take a look at that and see, all right, this is stable, if you will, or not. I'll actually provide you with a link to results where we're actually running those end-to-end tests and not end-to-end tests.
Okay, but yeah, having those results contributed upstream is necessary for all of these blocking and default questions, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And we were kind of blocked on one cube dashboard issue, which was preventing us to publish those results. So we are working on that. But the current status is every PR that goes into Cryo, we run the entire cluster end to end, and only if it passes do we merge a PR. And we'll be reporting that to dashboard as soon as possible. So in the test grid.
My gut tells me we're not considering it defaulted Cryo until 1.12 then.
As Cryo developers, we would love to make Cryo the default, but I guess it's more a SigNode discussion. Yeah.
It doesn't need to be the default as long as it's first class blocking job upstream, right? Like we could get to that point where we have test apparatus and the upstream grids to make it a blocking job. So I think right now it's out of band, right?
And to add to that, Tim, I think that my guess is I have no standing in Signode, but my guess is that any runtime would have to actually go through that state first for a release or two, and then become
Yeah,
that.
totally agree.
Okay. We need to move on to the rest of the schedule for the meeting. I recommend anybody wanting to follow up on Cryo and its status within Kubernetes follow up in Signode or on the Cryo GitHub project, one way or the other. So thank you very much. Antonio, if you can add links to any additional resources to the notes, that would be appreciated. So next up.
Josh, a quick follow-up question. It would be really awesome to get a kind of equivalent container D update in this meeting at some point. I don't know who to ask for that, but
I ask on ContribX. We keep the schedule for this. This is schedule of demos, etc.
okay.
And go ahead and suggest that.
Okay. Great.
Cool. Okay. So next up is me. I am changing hats to 1.11 release lead to talk about the 1.11 release. We are currently in week 2 of 12 for the 1.11 release cycle. This means that we are currently mostly in feature collection mode. Plus, the rest of the team is hard at work trying to improve automation and procedures for later in the release cycle to make things go more smoothly, which I'll talk about in a minute. But first, Ihor, do you want to talk about feature requests for features?
Just a brief update and brief request from me and from Steven, who is secondary lead for the features in this release. So we're currently in the process of collecting features. So if you're developing something new or updating your existing feature for Kubernetes for 1.11, please ensure that your feature is tracked under the features repo. Also, please don't forget about the features tracking spreadsheet, where we collecting all the features that are targeting this release. If you will add these features to this tracking spreadsheet instead of me or Steven, you'll simplify our life a lot. Thank you, George. Go ahead, please.
Cool. Thank you. Now, we discussed one other thing that would actually be a change to the schedule. A couple of people have pointed out that as we've gone on in Kubernetes releases, code freeze has gotten longer. And the reason for that is that it's gotten, over the various Kubernetes releases, harder and harder to get a clear signal with all tests passing and everything stable. And so our response has been to lengthen code freeze to the reasonable period to make that happen. However, the problem with that is that gives everybody less time to work on development, which is bad. Plus, that sort of trend tends to feed itself with things getting longer. So for 1.11, we want to try an experiment to shorten code freeze conditionally, which is that if by the last 3 weekdays before the announcement of code, before the beginning of Code Slush, which is currently scheduled for May the 22nd, if those last 3 weekdays we have all tests passing, that is, the test boards for all blockers are green, then we will delay Code Slush and Code Freeze in order to make Code Freeze a week shorter and give people more time to work on development work. We'll send out an announcement about this with the schedule and update the release document tomorrow and on Kubernetes Dev for this. The idea is to say, hey, the whole reason why code freeze has been getting longer is because we're using the code freeze period to make Kubernetes stable and make the tests pass. If the tests are passing all the time, then code freeze could become as short as like 7 working days. And that's the goal we're aiming towards in the future, and this release will do that conditionally. If that works out, and this will be up to the 112 release lead, whoever that is, but if that works out, then 112 will actually schedule code freeze to be shorter, which would be awesome. So look for an announcement on Kubernetes dev there, and an update to the official schedule regarding that. And if you have any questions or suggestions regarding that, please take them to SIG release, either the mailing list or the Slack channel.
So Josh, can I ask one clarifying question?
Sure.
Which tests specifically are you talking about? If I were to go to test grid and look at a dashboard, so you see right now the column for begin code freeze says we're going to be looking at release master blocking, master upgrade, and I think 111 blocking. Do we need to make sure all 3 of those dashboards are passing, or is it like just 111 blocking or master, like which is it?
All 3.
All 3.
Yep.
Okay. Friendly reminder, all of those are, so 111 dashboard's not going to exist until that's created a week before, I think.
Okay.
And it takes us a couple days to get that.
Okay, yeah, so in that case it will be mainly focused on master blocking and master upgrade then.
Okay, yeah. And all of those are failing right now. Master,
Yep.
Pretty much every single upgrade test is failing.
Yeah, for comparison, in the 110 cycle, they were all failing until we were like over a week into code freeze. Not all failing, but not all passing until a week into code freeze. So would be a substantial change. Okay. So next up, we are having a 110 dot release later today, I believe. Maciek?
Can you hear me now, maybe?
Yes.
Oh, cool. So I started working on the release earlier today. There are some issues with some tests flaking and the scalability issue, which I looked with 6 scalability. So there are some last minute issues. It seems we already have debugged all of them. I'm just waiting for some more green runs. So probably I'll release it later today. Failing that, it may slip to tomorrow, but I hope not. So that's the current status, basically.
Okay. Thank you. So thank you. Does anyone know, do we have a accompanying 1.9 release? Okay, no information on that. Okay, so then next up we have Graph of the Week, which will be presented by Aaron.
Hi, sorry, I was typing something. Okay, hi, I'm Aaron Krickenberger with this week's Graph of the Week. These links are going to be in the meeting notes, which I will share now to click so you can see them. Hooray! So the Graph of the Week I want to talk about this week is PRs, labels, repository groups. Technically, what this means is how many pull requests have a given label applied over time. What we're looking at right now is the Kubernetes repository group, which is just Kubernetes/Kubernetes, and pull requests that have the needs rebase label applied. Your pull request is going to get this applied if you need to rebase your pull request to resolve a merge conflict. So generally, the more of these pull requests that are going up over time, the more that an author is being unresponsive and has potentially abandoned their pull request. This is something that we as reviewers and approvers and in the community can't really do anything about. This is something you as an author need to be responsible for handling. So that's what this graph is. It's the selected label for the selected repository group. The next graph shows this across all of the repository groups. So this is just what Kubernetes looks like. And if I get rid of the all Kubernetes, all repos combined in Kubernetes, this is what the rest of those repository groups look like with the needs rebase label applied. Historically, you can see needs rebase was only applied to like a couple repo groups, and we since moved that from a Munge GitHub munger to a Prow plugin. And with Prow, it's possible for us to enable things for all repos across the org or multiple repos much more easily. So that's why you're starting to see this pop up in other places. Because although GitHub's UI will show you like a little merge conflict thing for pull requests that have this, which I guess I can show you, it doesn't alert you. So for those of you who rely on like email alerts to know when something has happened to your pull request and you need to do something about it, the application of a label will give you that. That's why we apply the label. The label can also be searched for. Pull requests that aren't mergeable cannot be easily searched for. This next graph here shows, I believe, all of the given labels for the repository. So you can see here if I get rid of all labels combined, so I'm just looking at individual labels stacked, and I get rid of the needs rebase label, here's sort of what the rest of these labels are. What do all of these labels mean? Well, you can, I don't know how readable this is, but you can sort of see a lot of them are prefixed with the word do not merge. There's also CLA no and CNCF CLA no. Basically, these are all things that the pull request author has to do something to make this pull request mergeable. So this is all the steps beyond just reviewing and approving the PR. For an exact definition of what these mean, you can go to go.k8s.io/GitHub labels and read more about them here. We're going to try and get better about sort of linking across to these things, but right now you can see do not merge block paths means this, tells you what thing is applying that, and what plugin, that should be blockade, not blockage, I'll file an issue later, is responsible for this, and clicking this will take you to the, well, it should take you to the source code for that. Okay, back to the dev stats thing. Let's see. So one other thing I will show is this wonderful needs okay to not.okaytotest.com URL. I think this was put together by Jace, but I call this the DIMS URL because DIMS is a superhero and generally uses this query to go figure out what pull requests need somebody from the GitHub organization of Kubernetes to go by and drop an OK to test. So for example, this ingress GCE pull request PR has it applied. I'll go take a look at it. Usually these pull requests are coming from first-time contributors, so people who aren't members of the organization will always get this applied because we just want to make sure that they're not trying to pull request in some sort of Bitcoin miner or something crazy like that. So you can usually do a very quick cursory glance. In this case, I can see they're obviously doing markdown files. So I will /OK to test. I will comment. The bot will remove that label. Label's gone. And so now CI can do its thing, and maybe a reviewer or approver is more likely to take a look at this. So this graph, like anybody who's a member, if you want to go help out new contributors, you can go use this not okay to test, or you can do the GitHub query yourself. And this graph initially just showed needs rebase, but now I can use it to go say how many pull requests have needs okay to test, and we can sort of see whether or not we're making a difference on this. So if I just go like over the last 6 months, you can see we have roughly 70 pull requests that any of you could go help push through the process if you'd like to. I think that's basically all I have to talk about today. Any questions? For doc updates, is okay to test meaningful? Not really. So right now there is a Prow plugin that automatically applies a no tests required thing, no retest required for doc updates. This is because the tests take a really, really long time to run, and the submit queue's merge capacity seems to be kind of maxed out. We're finding that the merge capacity with Tide and eventual replacement for the submit queue is much, much better, and we'd rather find ways to just improve the overall capacity and have every single pull request go through the same workflow. If we find we need to do that same optimization down the line of using something like Bazel or regular expressions to identify pull requests that test files that don't update any code, we could streamline the process for those. But we'd like to try and get back to a world where every pull request goes through the exact same workflow all the time.
Okay, I think that last bit answered my question. So you want to see, even for like a doc update, you want to see OK to test?
Yes. OK to so the way you don't get needs OK to test applied to your pull request is you ask to become a member of Kubernetes. I can go show you the steps to do that real quick. Some people think trying to become a member of the organization is this big, scary thing. Basically, it just kind of requires a little bit of trust and a little bit of human vetting. So if I go to the community repo and I click on community membership, new contributors can just sort of do a lot of things like apply labels or comment on issues or open pull requests and have some of these safeguards put in place. But if you know you're going to be working on the project for a while, you can make sure that you've got two-factor auth enabled on your account and send an email to this mailing list saying you'd like to join Kubernetes and show some of the work you've done. Demonstrate intent, demonstrate dedication to the project, and we'll totally help you out. There used to be something in here about like you have to have contributed at least 5 pull requests or something like that. We're not really looking for that. We're just looking for a little bit of trust, a little bit of dedication. So I would super welcome anybody who's interested in becoming a member to go through this process.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Aaron. Which means now it's time for the SIG updates. So we are going to start with SIG Windows. So Steve, you ready to give us an update on what SIG Windows is up to, other than writing a whole bunch of code from the look of it? Steve Wong, are you there?
You said SIG Windows, so I got confused. So SIG VMware, right?
Oh, sorry, SIG VMware. Oh my goodness. Okay. SIG Windows is coming up. SIG Windows is coming up later on.
Yeah, you confused us a little bit there.
Yeah.
I confused me.
Okay, so the status report, this one just got started. So in fact, we're going to have the second meeting in the hour after this meeting. But we did have our first one. I think we've got the SIG largely in place. We've got the charter defined. It has a presence on GitHub. The first Zoom meeting was 2 weeks ago, and it's repeating on 2-week cycles. We had 11 people show up for that first meeting, but I'm hoping it grows beyond that. The meeting agenda and notes are implemented as a Google Doc shared to the Google Plus group associated with the SIG, which I think seems to be the convention in the other SIGs I've been a member of. The Google group membership is up to 31 members. We've only had 3 messages exchanged so far, but it's new, so I'm expecting that to grow too. The SIG VMware channel on the Kubernetes Slack has 50 members following it right now with about 20 messages. The intent of this SIG, it's in the charter, but it's, as a recap, it's to support Kubernetes users and prospective users who are trying to deploy in an enterprise environment at scale on VMware or VMware-related platforms. And it's also intended to be a group to focus project architecture, integration, and development work related to the VMware cloud provider platforms. One of the first things we're likely to go off and do or are doing is refactoring of the VMware cloud provider into the newer model. So that's my wrap up.
Cool. Well, thank you very much. Any questions for SIG VMware before we move on to the next SIG?
Okay, thanks,
so,
Josh. You can hit me up on our Slack channel if you think of anything later.
Okay, thank you. So next is SIG Windows.
Hi, everybody. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. So SIG Windows, ever since we released beta with 1.9, we have been super busy in terms of getting a lot more people to start using our technology and deploying Windows Server containers on Kubernetes. We've gotten a lot of bugs as well, which we're working hard to fix. But a few things that kind of I want to point out, some of the most recent work that we were able to deliver is we added support for container CPU resources. So you can put resource control on your containers on Windows now. We added support for file system stats, flex volumes, We had the support for VMware Fusion environments that was preventing some folks that wanted to use on-premise technologies to deploy Kubernetes. And then we also added experimental support for Hyper-V isolation, which is the secure way of running containers on Windows, very similar to some of the concepts in CADA containers. Additionally, we have engaged with the larger team, and we started writing end-to-end CI/CD automation and tests for SIG Windows, so that it will allow us to prevent regressions, catch issues early on that come up as part of testing, and our ETAs to kind of start finalizing some of that infrastructure within the next month or so. Overall, we're making good progress, and we're hoping to go to GA at or near when Windows Server 2019 ships. So there's some additional features in Windows that we're waiting for, and we'll be able to get to GA with that release. Our community is, like I said earlier, is expanding. So if you guys have an interest in trying out Kubernetes on Windows, come and join us. You can find us on Slack. You can ping me directly if you have any questions, and we look forward to getting this feature to GA.
Well, thank you very much. Let's see if there's any questions. Oh, I don't see anything in chat. Any questions for SIG Windows? Okay, well, that was speedy. So thank you very much, Michael.
Thank you.
So the next one up, I'm going to give. So the other one on the schedule is OnPrem, and as nobody from that working group could be here, they just wanted me to make the announcement for them that SIG OnPrem, which is originally SIG OnPrem, has demoted themselves to a working group. They're mainly now just an area, a forum for discussion for people with on-prem deployments, and not a formal SIG. If we get some form, if we get some officially recognized group even below the level of working group for the sort of discussion forum thing, that will probably be what they will end up being. So right now they're a Slack channel and a mailing list. Without a lot of formal meetings or structure for their group. I understand that the steering committee is discussing something in terms of a new group type, but I don't think there's a decision yet.
I can speak to that part real briefly and just say, first off, usually you'd be able to go look at the steering committee meeting recording right now to go see what we talked about. You could also go take a look at the meeting, but the recording's not posted yet because the person in charge of recording is on vacation at the moment. You can take a look at our agenda to see specifically what we discussed, but loosely we're trying to clarify what a working group is, why you want one, what the rules for it are, et cetera, et cetera. And we expect to have more concrete answers about that after we meet next in 2 weeks. Also look for some more clarification about what a sub-project is versus a SIG versus a working group. And we'll do a tour of what those are and why you might be more interested in talking about a sub-project than a working group.
Cool. Thank you. Okay, so we are now into announcements as part of our phase, speeding along here. First of all, I want to start the announcements with the usual shout-outs. As a reminder, if you have anybody who you want to shout out for doing good things for the Kubernetes community, please drop their name in the shout-outs Slack channel or email George. First shout-out to a mentoring class for graduating, including Robin Piercy, Mike Splain, and whoever RDRGMNSC is for graduating, and Paris for organizing the whole group mentoring program that allows us to train people to bring them up in the community. Contact Paris if your SIG or working group is interested in participating in group mentoring, because we need more people advancing to reviewer for the project. Shout out to Maciek Patel for providing clarity around the node autoscaler. Not sure what that means. I have a feeling that there was a documentation effort involved. So, said for shout outs. Next announcement, cherry pick auto approve munger. That looks like an Aaron, even though there's no name on it.
Yeah, how'd you know? That's totally me. So I just sent an email to Kubernetes dev echoing this, but if the words cherry pick auto approve sound really scary or confusing to you, you're not alone. This is a sentiment expressed by most patch release and branch release managers that I have talked to. We've all collectively forgotten that this munger exists. It was something that would magically apply the cherry pick approved label to cherry pick pull requests if certain labels were applied to the pull request that was cherry picked from. If that's all confusing, don't worry. We've collectively evolved to a process where in order for pull requests to merge into release branches, the release branch manager must manually apply a label called cherry pick approved. And so we're going to just keep using that process and turn off the bot that occasionally magically applies that label in a confusing or surprising way. If you have any wild objections about this, please respond to the email that I sent out to Kubernetes dev. I have CC'd all of the release and patch release managers on the pull request in question, and I have notified SIG release and SIG contributor experience. We are also looking to improve both documentation and the experience of the cherry pick process as part of the V111 process, but that's down the line. For now, we're just trying to call it what it is. Any questions? Nope. Okay, thanks.
Cool. Thank you. Steering committee updates, sub-projects and SIG charters. Brian Grant.
Yeah, I just wanted to quickly tell people what we're up to. In addition to the workgroup stuff that Aaron mentioned, we're trying to help SIGs create their charters. So there are a couple of aspects to that, but one is explaining to SIGs this new concept, explicit concept at least, of sub-projects. Many SIGs have a number of sub-projects underway, which sometimes have overlapping groups of contributors and sometimes not. Example would be SIG cluster lifecycle, which has many tools like kubeadm, kops, kubeAWS, kubespray, and others. So each of those is kind of a distinct sub-project, but most SIGs have multiple sub-projects. So that's something we're trying to formalize. So we've divided the SIGs amongst the different steering committee members, and those members will be working with each SIG on their charters. Right now, there are about a half dozen charters in flight, so we're going to focus on those first as we flesh out the details of what a charter should look like, and then we'll take it to the other SIGs. So that's it.
Thank you. Other things, we had an Ask Me Anything on Reddit this last week. A lot of people participated, a lot of questions, a lot of user feedback. Some of the questions that were asked there actually have relevance for how we organize the project. Take a look at the questions and the answers there, and thanks so much for the team of folks, including Timothy and Chris and several others, for fielding questions there. Whoever put this on there said we'll likely do more of these in the future, since there is an R Kubernetes there. So look for more announcements and opportunities to participate in Ask Me Anything. I'm going to actually jump out of order and have one quick announcement, because then Dan Kahn has a demo, I believe. The other announcement, remember, Kubernetes Contributor Summit, May 1st. Once again, you have to register if you're going to attend this. The link is in the notes for registering this. Even if you are already registered for KubeCon, there's separate registration for the Contributor Summit so that we know how many people are coming into which sessions. And there will be both new contributor and ongoing contributor tracks in the morning, and then general SIG updates in the afternoon. So next up, Dan Kahn, you wanted to share something new from CNCF. And if you're speaking, we can't hear you.
Sorry, I had to unmute there. Can you see that screen?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Great. Okay, sorry about that. So, hi, I'm Dan from CNCF, and we built a tool that we think folks may find helpful called the cloud native interactive landscape. Now, folks may have seen the static version of this in the past, and it's all available on GitHub, and I will just show it right here on the screen. This has at times been referred to as the hellscape. And so admittedly, it has a lot of detail on it. And then as you're trying to find out an area like, say, key management, trying to look at, well, what's the next step, winds up just doing a ton of web searches to find the repos for each of these and the Twitter handles and such. And so as you're investigating rolling out new projects or add-ons or such, we built this. It does show the CNCF projects at top as the default view, but you can come over here and go to, say, landscape categories. And now it's going to reorganize and show by category. And I wanted to thank Matt Rickard, just came in yesterday and opened a couple pull requests to add in some new projects, which we were able to immediately approve. And so you can come in here and say, for example, application definition and image build. Here's draft from Microsoft, and here's scaffold from Google. And he added in Minikube, which is nice to have here. And so then for each of these, you can see how old the project is, that it got a tweet this week, that its last commit was this week. And these example filters on the left show you that you can do things like open source by age and see that Postgres is the oldest project that we're tracking. 22 years ago was their first commit. This is a link, and you can see that their latest commit was this week, which is just an incredible level of devotion and commitment to see that through, or open source by stars, or offerings from China. And so there's kind of, it's really designed as a tool that's helpful for investigating it, but it's also meant as a crowdsourcing platform. And so if you see bugs in it, please open a pull request. And if there's projects that are missing, we have details here on the top on how to add them in. So we'd love feedback on it. And that's the thought.
Okay, thank you very much, Dan. And so that concludes our Thursday community meeting and update, and everybody back to working on features for 111. Thanks everyone.
Thanks, Josh.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Josh.
everyone.
Happy Thursday, all.